right. We are live. Hello. Welcome, our Next App Social family. We are super excited to talk with you all today about a topic that we think we can benefit from, you can benefit from. But before we get into it, just as always, I'm Richelle Wright. I'm joined as always by Joanne Buford. Today we're doing it a little different. We're doing it podcast style for you. And just so you know, regardless whether you can see our faces or not, make sure you're subscribing to our channel so you never miss a live or a replay. Hit that subscribe button so that you're always here for our interviews. And discussions that we have here at NextOppSocial. So with that being said, let's get into it. This was a topic Juwan brought up yesterday. So I'm going to let you do an intro.
Well, once again, hello, everyone at NextOppSocial. Thanks you for tuning in. And always, Richelle, it is a pleasure to share this time with you. And, as it says, how to build endurance in business as an entrepreneur. And as I was kind of pontificating about this, something you said earlier is resonating with me. 2020 has been a lot.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, it's easy to fall into the trap that just because you're a business owner, just because you're an entrepreneur, even when you're enjoying success, even when your success is starting to become apparent, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that you don't stop having issues because you're an entrepreneur. And the reality of the matter is those issues actually take on even greater significance. The challenges take on greater significance. So, death doesn't stop knocking on your door because you're an entrepreneur. We know a lot of people lost family. I know I can speak to myself personally about that. There are a lot of families who are buckling underneath the strain, right? Let's be real. Sometimes financially, when issues come home, it also impacts the family life, right? Also, look, we don't like to talk about this, but sometimes stress and turmoil and psychological trauma not only brings out the best, but sometimes brings out the worst in people. People just behave in ways that you wouldn't believe that are so inhumane. And so as an entrepreneur, you're still having to juggle all these different things. And I think when it's all said and done, when the books are written about 2020, when the exposés and the documentaries are written about 2020, one of the I think one thing that's going to resonate repeatedly, a theme that's going to come up, is this ideal of endurance and flexibility and the ability to pivot and change with the times. And you're going to find that the winners are not, as always, aren't going to necessarily be the most talented. It's not always the case. They're not always the most intelligent. But sometimes success is just a matter of your ability and willingness to show up and continue to endure when other people, quite frankly, tuck tail and throw in the towel. And I think that's why this discussion is so absolutely important, right? And then, of course, you have the temptation to also believe that individuals who are high achievers, and in particular, individuals who exhibit what appears to be superhuman endurance, they're not superheroes, you know? Endurance is skilled trade. It's a muscle, just like any other muscle. And there are things that you can do. There are approaches that you can take. There are decisions that you can make that will build that muscle, that will allow you to acquire the skilled trade required to meet the challenge of entrepreneurship in the best and worst of times, right? Yeah. And that's what I would hope that this discussion today would equip people with, right? This is not a discussion. This is not your typical Facebook, YouTube channel where we're going to get on there and talk about money raining from the sky and, you somehow being divinely guaranteed to have success. No, that's not what this is about. This is about if you are struggling right now, if you are having challenges, if you're in a situation where you're juggling multiple things, and then on top of that, you have the crush of the pandemic and all that wonderfulness, right, that enduring this pandemic entails, obviously I'm being sarcastic here. Hopefully I want you to catch that, right? You can't see my face. That you understand that, look, you can get through this. And, we're going to talk about what it means, quite frankly, to barrel through this, and also how to absorb and how to adapt and how to adopt the right habits to overcome whatever challenges you may be dealing with, small or large alike.
Yeah, I think this kind of also, like, to start way at the beginning with a lot of what we talk about, that um as you say a lot, like, you're either about this life or you're not, right? And I think as an entrepreneur, when this is really built into your DNA, in your makeup, in your soul, when and we've had so many really great interviews with people who articulate this as well, where there is no other option for them. This is the only option. This is the only path, as winding and difficult or challenging it may be. In their soul, and they know that this is what they have to do. This is what they're meant to do, right? And
Mm.
when you already have that makeup and you already have that decision made, right, for yourself, you have to you find other bouts of strength to endure through things that you may not have had in other situations in your life, right? I think that that's part of what it takes to, start this process of pushing through, or I don't know if I would say pushing through, but like, of really finding that strength to get through situations that they might not feel temporary right now. This might feel like your whole, world is crashing in, but where, as an entrepreneur, if you know that this is that path, that this is what you have to choose, it's like taking discipline, the discipline of a workout routine, or discipline of eating habits, or discipline of, taking care of your life. This is discipline to another level, especially if you're
Mhm.
going to commit to something like this, and try and find strength to push through or move through these moments.
Yes. As I'm listening to you, you said something about an internal voice, knowing that this is we're meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's interesting because I will willingly admit I'm not what you call a purebred entrepreneur, right?
Right. Right.
It's not like excuse me, I promise you, I don't have it. Okay. um, it's not like I grew up as a kid and said I'm gonna be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I grew up and I said I wanted to be a change agent. I knew that. I knew I wanted to educate people. I knew that. And I knew I derived a special kind of joy out of seeing other people level up, even more so than myself. I knew those things were inside me, right? And you mentioned something about, I honestly feel like, at least for me personally, and I know there are a lot of individuals out there, where you feel like entrepreneurship almost chooses you.
Yeah.
You know, the same way I felt like poetry and creative arts chose me. Like, I just couldn't help it. It was like breathing when I was doing it. And it took me over. And I feel the exact same way about entrepreneurship. And I think that has a lot to do with values, right? When people talk about that internal thing that's driving them, where they can't see themselves doing anything else, if you do a deep dive, and this is why we talk about it and it sounds so cliche, but it's so absolutely important, knowing your why. And
Mm-hmm.
I think people oftentimes don't understand what that means. Knowing your why really means, what do you value? What do you value? For me, entrepreneurship was really going to be my thing. Whether I was doing a job, which I very rarely have done, and be an entrepreneur, if I was full time in entrepreneurship, my values push me this direction. I value independence. I value having agency in my life. I value being able to make choices. I value being responsible for the things that happen to me and the things that happen around me. These are things that I value. And it's so absolutely important that you get clear about that. And not just as it relates to entrepreneurship, but I value financial independence. Not for myself. I'll be dead at some point. I value financial independence because I wanted to break the cycle of poverty in my family, right? The cycle of not having. I wanted to create and set up a situation where the next generation truly, 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 truly had the means to really level up, right? Launch into a different socioeconomic strata and be able to move differently and do things differently. And I made up my mind a long time ago that I was going to be willing to pay the price that I felt like other people around me weren't willing to pay to make sure that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what I do is my children in mind. Making sure that when I meet my maker, that they don't remember me just in photos alone, but they remember me because of the things that I built and a tangible, material, unapologetically material legacy, right? Where they can touch, okay, my father's living and breathing here in a tangible way. It's impacting me in a tangible, it's not just memories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a value, right? As an entrepreneur, knowing what you value and knowing what's really important is oh my gosh, it's so imperative because like you said before, what ends up happening is issues happen, challenges happen, serious things happen. Let's not be dismissive.
Right.
But if you're connected to your values and you're connected to the things that matter most, the things that matter most are so big. They're so much bigger than any personal challenge or pain or strife or difficulty I may come across. That one value that I just shared is like, it colors everything. It colors all my thoughts, everything, everything that I do. And you have to, part of choosing your values is also choosing your priorities, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are some things I've had to give up in order to go up. There are some decisions that I've made that other people would not have made, but because I'm so laser focused on a particular result. And I'm unapologetic about that. And that's another reason why you got to get really clear about your values and really clear about your why and what's important to you. Because if you don't have an agenda for yourself, the world will create one for you. And then you're not really moving in a spirit. It's hard to move in the spirit of entrepreneurship when you start losing agency over who you are and what you're about, right?
Yeah.
And that's a huge piece of creating endurance, right? Being crystal clear about what you value, what are your priorities, what are the things that matter most, because those are the things that will carry you. And then I'll move into a second part of it. I'm going to take a breath for a moment. But those are the things that will carry you when, quite frankly, shit hits the fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So after you've defined your values, then you start defining your goals, right? And your goals need to be correlate, or they need to coincide, they need to parallel. Your goals need to be predicated, they need to be fed by your values. If you've set goals that are not aligned with your values, it'll be easy for you to dismiss and throw those goals down when things get tough,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the other piece. Your goals have to, the roots of your goals are your values. And your goals give you direction, right? Your values give you purpose. Your values give you energy. Your values are the things that give you resonance. But your goals are it's almost like you setting your own kind of compass in terms of what direction you're going to go, right? And once again, goal setting is skilled trade. Goal setting is a muscle. But understand, the people that you admire, the people who are willing to quote unquote plow through. I know there's got to be a better synonym, but that's the one I'm using. Um, the ability to be able to plow through things and get things done when, once again, life around you may be going to hell in a handbasket, and emotionally and physically you may not be there. Once again, you need to have big, hairy, audacious goals. Your values need to be omnipresent in your life, and your goals need to be just as big and reflective of those values, right? So, for me, being successful as an entrepreneur, for me, created an environment of laughter, edification, growth for my children, regardless of what's going on in my life. Make sure they know that they're going to get that from their dad. Support, these are, and then I have specific goals around those things, which I won't go into now, but hopefully people get an idea of what I'm talking about, right? So you define your values, and then you define your goals. And, I've heard it said like this, human beings have 16,000 thoughts over the course of a day, the average human being. 12,000 of those thoughts, 12,000 out of 16,000 are negative, defeating thoughts. So for those of you who have negative thoughts, for those of you who feel like people who are happy and smiling and getting it in all the time, no, they're having those negative 12,000 thoughts too, just like you are.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're doing is because their values are cemented. They've taken the time to set goals, and it takes time to do these things. You don't do these things overnight, but because they've taken the time to do these things, when they wake up in the morning, their goals are so omnipresent, right? And there's certain things you can do. There's certain strategies and tactics you can use to make your goals omnipresent or present in your life at all times. And despite the fact that they're having those 12,000 negative thoughts, because their goals are in their face, their goals are so top of mind, their goals are like tattooed to their soul and to their mind and to their arms and bodies and legs, that when the negative thoughts come, right, you look at your goals, and your goals are like a self-check, right? Mm-hmm. The goals turn around and redirect you to where you said you wanted to go, because they're being fed by the values. And once again, you found ways to make those goals omnipresent, right? That's one of the words I'm thinking about more than anything else. That's the thing that matters most. And if you're able to do those things, you'll start having more consistent outcomes, right? It'll give you the energy, and it'll also make sure you have milestones in your life to make sure that you're staying focused and not letting those 12,000 negative thoughts run you over.
I think as well, another big part of why, and you've emphasized it, having values and setting goals, it's a skill trade, it's a muscle, you have to work at it. And it's not something that just innately we all understand how to develop for ourselves, right? But what these things do as well is they help curb us through another thing we talk about too, which is like that shiny object syndrome, right? Which I think is sometimes what's the word I'm looking for? Is sometimes a scapegoat for when things get hard, right? We're quick to feel like, oh, this isn't working. We need to jump ship. We need to do something else. This needs to change. And there's nothing wrong with, I don't want to dismiss the idea of shifting what you need to shift and pivoting or changing if you need to do that. But it's important to have those values and goals to see are you just reacting to what's happening around you, right? Because life got tough, something got difficult, whatever, and you're making just decisions that are just reactive decisions, or are these decisions still rooted in your values and goals? Because I think that as well is what's going to help you endure through something that, like, to be honest, like entrepreneurship is not always, it's not sunshine every day. There are mundane days too, right? Yes. There's a lot of mundaneness. There's more mundaneness than sunshine. Like, to be perfectly honest, like when you're building things, sure, if we put a time-lapse video up, this would all look really cool. Like if we can condense it, but there's so much mundaneness, right, that can that's happening. And when things get difficult or things become too stagnant or things like that, if you are trying to work through a difficult time and immediately go to, well, this just isn't working, right? And that might be true, but you're instead, because as entrepreneurs, I think we're serial we have a serial issue for most of us where we'd be like, well, we got to keep evolving, right? We got to keep changing or whatever. And that's true to a certain extent. But again, if it's not rooted in your values and goals, it's not going to work out for you in the way that it needs to. When you're trying to endure through something difficult, that might be a bad decision, you know?
Yeah. Because, you and I talk about this all the time. It takes a lot of energy. And it's difficult to put your life's energies behind a compromise. It's difficult to put your life's energies behind a compromise. It's difficult to deal with stuff you have to deal with, to grow in the ways you need to grow, to endure the pain of building the muscle. No different than enduring the pain of building up from running 1 mile to 4 miles every other day. It's going to be pain. It's going to be anguish. You're going to be tired. You're not going to want to do it. And if your values and your goals aren't consistent or correlate with the work that you're doing, it's going to be hard for you to find the energy, right? And then, of course, you touched on something else that also kind of caught my attention. Like, it's about, so what ends up happening too, and it's because we live in this Instagram and Facebook world, right? You have a lot of gurus and people out there who are trying to tell people how to live their lives.
Yep.
You have a lot of people trying to dictate what's normal and what is this, that, and the other. And anyone who just does a precursory study of success knows that the majority of successful people do what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. Warren Buffett says it all the time. If you are doing the opposite of what the crowd is doing, you're going to be right 90% of the time, right? So you can't fall into the trap of letting other people's goals, other people's ideals, other people's, conceptions define you. That's not going to work. When you're an entrepreneur, 9 times out of 10, you made a decision to become an entrepreneur because you wanted to define those things for yourself.
Right. Again, it's in the hat that you have to keep remembering that.
Yes. And the other thing is, look, entrepreneurship is a lot like making the decision to wake up in the morning and eat a salad as opposed to a burger.
Right.
It seems like a mundane, simple decision, like most entrepreneurial decisions are. And look, the accoutrements are sexy. The awards are sexy. The recognition is sexy. It's fun. It's great. It's fantastic, right? But at the end of the day, it's those simple, little, boring decisions that make the biggest impact, right? So you wake up every single day, you eat burgers. It's a simple decision, but it has massive consequences, literally massive consequences, right? 30, 60, 90 days from now, versus a simple decision to eat a smoothie or eat a salad or eat something that's good for you, right? The decision in and of itself seems small. It doesn't make a big deal today, but it is the accumulation, the compound effect, i.e. Darren Hardy, y'all. Compound effect, i.e. Darren Hardy, that ultimately determines your success, right? And falling in love with the monotonous is important. Yeah. Falling boring can be good sometimes. Trust me.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I don't know if it's because of this year. I do think it has a lot to do with this year. There's, we have been accelerating and barreling through to a way of life that is 100% digital, 100% social, and we are stuck to our phones. Our livelihood, everything is stuck to our phones. And I think that 2020 highlighted that because we had to physically stop doing so much of what we were doing, and so many of us did become, everyone's screen time went drastically up. But I think what has happened too is the part of, a little bit, not a lot, but part of a certain individuals you can notice are having their own little undoing of realizing how much of their values and goals and worth were placed into these programs and these apps and things like that, that now they've realized through a very difficult time and a very difficult period and very difficult year, that these apps and these programs and these digital things and these things that they thought were supposed to be helping them and accelerating them have done nothing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They've done nothing to help them through a pandemic. They've done nothing to help them through their business. They've done, things like that. And I will say too that it has been interesting to watch, like some of these, like for example, Instagram has shifted where people who had millions and millions of followers, which not to say they don't, but so many people who stop following them or stop looking at them or stop or actively are not trying to follow the guru, the this or whatever, because some of these people, the facade is coming out and they're realizing that these people, either they can't help them endure through what they need to endure.
Yep.
I opened my Instagram today and and I immediately closed it and remembered why. I'm actively in a place right now where I'm not finding any joy through it. But the first caption that came up from I don't even know who the person was, like, but popped up that said, I struggled a lot through the first few months of my business. And then I rolled my eyes and closed it. And I'm like, oh, you struggled for a few months, huh? Well, that's the message you're going to tell people, that's it. It's a few months of struggle and then it's just riches and rewards all the time.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, you also need to see, especially if you're in a place right now where you're struggling, if you're really needing to buckle down or work through something and get your mind right, your business right, everything, things like social media, things like, I'm not saying that you'd abandon them for the sake of your business, but you really need to be mindful of what you're digesting,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're digesting like you're saying, we're inundated with negative thoughts or whatever. I immediately could have read that sentence and been like, well, I'm a failure because I struggled for more than a few months.
Yep.
Like, well, I guess I'm worthless because I didn't struggle for only 2 months and then had $1 million, like,
right.
You have to be very, very mindful of what content you are choosing to consume during a period of your life like this, because it can exponentially make things worse or better, but also worse.
Yeah. Which kind of leads to, and what I believe is the next piece, right? You have your values, you have your goals. Hopefully you have your goals somewhere where you can see them on a regular basis, right?
Right.
Then the next step should be, just a suggestion, write down the top 3 things, not the top 20, not the top 10, but just 3 simple things you can do on a daily basis to help you achieve your goals. And if you're looking at 3 different things on a daily basis to help you achieve your goals, when you find yourself getting sucked in to that social media world or getting sucked into whatever distractions and things are going on out there, those 3 things become your modus operandi. Those 3 things become the things that you're going to knock off the to-do list, regardless of what transpires, right? And I tell people start with 3, because if you're not accustomed to doing this, 5 and 10, it's like, once again, you're been accustomed to running 1 mile and one day you say I'm gonna run 4. You're going to strain yourself. It's not going to be a good look, right? Mm-hmm. So start with 3 things, just 3 simple things that you can do in a day to get you closer to those goals. And once again, take it like you take the ideal of eating a salad a day as opposed to a burger day. They don't have to be big, grandiose things. They can just be
right. Well,
small.
and they shouldn't be. Right.
Right. 3 simple things you can do. And that way, even if you do get sucked into social media, that way, if you do get distracted, something crazy or insane happens, something unanticipated, the way it always happens, right? Mm-hmm. You still got those 3 things and you're still a step closer to what you were taking aim at. And if you're taking these steps, these things will help you create the endurance and focus that you're seeking as an entrepreneur, if you're in that place where you're needing this right now.
Right. It's getting that 1% better each day, 1% better each week, 1% better each month. It all adds up. When you are looking at those three things, I think it's just so important to recognize that they're not giant three things that are going to be things that you actually can't tackle each day, right?
Right.
You need to be super realistic, and if you're looking at those three things and they are too big, then you need to break those down, right? Are
Yeah.
you be able to look at it and be like, can I actually do that every day? That's why, for example, like when people are saying like they want to read more, right? They want to read more books. Well, you don't you don't put something vague like I'm going to sit down and read, right? You need to, I think there's power in putting more tangible things around it. I see a lot of people who say like I got to read 10 pages. Well, most people can tackle 10 pages a day. That's a realistic thing. If you do more, great. If you only do 10, you still did it, right?
Yep.
But trying to just say I want to read more, or part of my thing that's going to help me get to my goals is reading more, you need to quantify that a little. Like it's like creating those KPIs, right? For our
Yes.
our small goals as well, because they need to be things that even in the worst of circumstances, you're probably going to be able to get done.
Yeah. You and I could talk about this for days, right? But I wanted this discussion, and I'm glad we kept it. We created simplicity, I think, in this discussion today, right? I wanted people to get a simple roadmap, simple, easy things you can kind of reflect on, think, digest to create that endurance. And to kind of begin to wrap up the way we began, right? And you introduced this, Rochelle, just the simple things on a daily basis, right? Those simple, boring things. And this is part of the boring, right? Doing the boring. Taking time to identify your values, taking time to identify your goals, taking time to, oh, something just changed there. Okay.
Yeah, hold on. Let me fix this again.
It's all good. Taking time to value your goals, taking time to write down those simple little things and make sure they're front of face on your computer, screensaver, reminders on your phone. I mean, if you're going to get reminded about Facebook posts and LinkedIn posts and Instagram posts, why not get reminded about your goals, right? Set those too.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that the crux of it all is to build endurance in business and life as an entrepreneur or whatever.
Yes.
Is you have to start small, and you have to start at what matters most to you, and that's what's going to help fuel that energy through difficult situations, or even positive situations, because we still need energy to get through those, and to really if you can have that same endurance through the positive situation through your negative, that will propel you further. That allows you to if you need to sit and take a moment, then you can do that when it's necessary. So I think that's important too. But
yes let's not forget that, right?
Right.
Because success can ruin you too if you're not focused. Yes, it'll take you places you didn't intend to go.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, being grounded is, at the end of the day, that's what that's about. That's what endurance is, y'all. It's being grounded and being clear about your values, priorities, the price you're willing to pay, and the simple things you can do.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Next Up family, make sure again that you subscribe. Please visit. We do have a website now, nextopsocial.com. All of our discussions and interviews are here on our YouTube page. They are also on our website. But if you are concerned that even by subscribing, you're still going to miss something, we do have an email list that we will send our discussions to you every week, so you'll never miss them. So please sign up. Please share this with anyone you feel that could get value out of this discussion today. And, bring us your questions, bring us your comments, tell us what you thought about it. We'd love to hear. Until next week, we'll talk to you all then.